Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Isaac. I'm JC or Jer, either one.
I'm Isaac. You can just call me that.
Cool. That works.
I've got to admit, I've listened to very short amounts of some of the previous recordings you've had.
Okay, cool.
So I have a marginal idea of what you're already about.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking I'd just shoot the shit with you for a few minutes and just get a bit of a feel for things.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
But
So, I hear that you're into the occult?
I'm into the occult as a perspective. I come from a Christian background, specifically Catholic, and
Okay.
I always grew up specifically with my mother, promoting me to learn more than the average, to
Right.
think a little more for myself. And once upon a time, especially specifically in my coursework, I came across Hermeticism specifically, and I started getting into that. Now, I don't have too much depth into it, but in terms of the idea of correspondence and additional depth into things, and always assuming that you never have the full picture, that in particular is what I appreciate. And I don't care specifically for the idea of having an institution, specifically, say, the Vatican. Always
Yeah.
mandate anything that you are allowed more or less to learn about. I want the entire picture, especially if it's despicable to the mainstream. Specifically, if it's despicable to the mainstream. If anything, in my eyes, if something is despicable to the mainstream, then it must have at least some grain of truth to it, and I at the very least ought to listen to it, even if that means that I especially reject it. That is the absolute basic to my perspective. Although, I'm not quite sure where you stand.
As far as the occult goes,
Just general understanding of all things, because for me, the occult is just a different layer of depth, just not the only one I use.
okay, so I guess how I see things is... See, my perspective changed because I was kind of like you. I looked at everything as another depth of layer, and yeah, I started out thinking that it was all right to do this stuff, and I started with light things. I believed that I was communicating with angels. I don't really want to go into my methodology because it worked, and
That's fair.
I have a completely different perspective now on it. I will say that I used a Lamington in Giote, or Giote, or Godier, or however you want to pronounce it. It's,
All right.
it's so many different ways.
Oh.
But I use those as examples. They're the lesser and greater keys of Solomon.
Oh, then you've gotten far deeper into it than I ever have. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no desire to do any communication stuff with anything, especially at this point. Like, for me,
Well, that's very, very, very good.
like,
Because they're not angels, and they're not.
they're definitely
I'll put it like that.
They're definitely something, I'm aware of that. I'm just not in any hurry to expose myself to anything marginally like that. For me, this is a different depth of reading. It's a different perspective.
Okay, so
Like, I have no desire to sit down with anything like a Ouija board or the Lesser and Greater Keys of Solomon, which I have looked into, but I have no desire to use.
just your time.
Sorry?
My perspective is these spirits, they just do smoke and mirrors, and they're trying to deceive you the entire time.
That's fair, because why would they want to tell you anything other than what they want you to hear?
Exactly.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I just want to see things as they are and nothing greater or nothing less. If something tells me that I am special, I will instantly be suspicious of it. If I think something wants something from me, I immediately find myself asking why. I have no desire to start doing things even marginally close to a heresy, although the definition of heresy means nothing to me. As far as I'm concerned, here is what I do know. I know that there is a first mover. I know that there is a great divine power. I know that there is an origin to things, and that it is worth worshipping. It is worth recognizing. And, in some capacity, that's where I came from. As to exactly what that means, I have no idea. I can
Okay.
pose questions toward it, but I want to get as close to that divine and benevolent good as possible, so I can restore myself to full potential for the benefit of being able to help others do the same.
Right.
That satisfies
Yeah,
me, and yeah.
That's a noble cause right there.
I want nothing more, nothing less, and if I can do that for my life, I will be happy.
Okay, so what? I'm trying to avoid the methodology thing because once again, I don't want to practice things. But
Fair.
what instruments or tools do you necessarily use?
My personal discernment. And
Okay, so
people,
you just read books, basically, is what you're saying.
I do have a deck of the Rider-Waite tarot cards, but I use them more
Okay.
so from a perspective of meditation because each card is supposed to represent a different slice of the human soul. I will look into the cards and read about them, so say life, death, universe, like all these nice things. I also understand they represent the hero's journey. From the perspective of the stories that these things can tell in ways at which I can almost put myself in you know how in science there's the prism and you can put light through and get that little rainbow thing?
Yes.
I want to take each of these individual cards and almost put myself through them so I can gain a better understanding of myself, not from the sake of doing anything more, but having a better awareness of my faults and weaknesses.
Okay. This is good. This is something I can work with.
Because
All right. So, my question is, what do you think? Okay. What cosmologic power do you think is behind the use or function of the cards?
I believe the cards are many things. I believe that there's several layers to them. The cards, while being nothing more than what they are, they're still influenced by chaos, anything greater than me that wants to influence them, but also basic fundamental truths that merely are. For example, 1 will always equal 1, and there is something beautiful in that, and there's depth into it. I can study that all day long, but it's still nothing more and nothing less than the number 1. Nuance demands that I treat it as such, but beauty and romance also demand that I study it for its greater capacities. For the purpose of understanding myself, I can't demand anything more than anyone else than that which is equal to or less than what I am as a positive substance. When I see these cards, that's what I think of. As far as I'm concerned, these cards at the end of the day are nothing more than a tool, which I will discard if it suits me. And I mean in the trash can, or burn, or throw as far as I can from the other side of the continent. At the end of the day, it's a tool that serves me, but only so I can serve others.
Right, but do you lay out boards, for instance, to receive information?
I will take these cards, and I have no issues posing a question, but I am very, 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 very particular about, I'll call it an analysis of energy. I'll put something down if I choose, and I take responsibility for the question, if I choose to do something, what is the output I can anticipate? Or if there's, say, a weakness in me, I refuse. I've had people want to ask me questions about the dead, questions about genuine fortune telling. That I refuse to even discuss. I won't touch it as far as I'm concerned. It's the plague itself.
Right. But what do you think arranges those cards when you're doing?
I think that is the process of all things, in the sense that there is both. I don't believe in random chance, but things are going to fall where they are. I believe that all things are not only predetermined, but I can influence them, but only in the capacity of what I am. I think there is something genuine there, but I'm only going to take it so seriously. I think that there is an underlying force that guides all things. I don't know what it is. I'm wary of it as hell. I won't trust it any more than that it's telling me something, but I think I can take that information and put a critical eye to it and learn something. It doesn't mean that it's something, it's just information. I want as much information as I can get my hands on. Ideally, I want more information than anyone else has, but I don't want an inch more than that which is unnatural. From my perspective, taking some cards, shuffling them the same way every time, and putting them down, I can get something from them because there's numbers on these cards. I can see a pattern. There's words to these cards, stories that resembles the hero's journey. Each of these cards, they're supposed to represent an aspect of the human soul, but it still is chaos. And I refuse to literally give myself to the whims of chaos.
So you recognize that the entities that may be using those cards to communicate aren't necessary. Okay, so you think that it's because I understand the perspective that you have, that it's the eternal paradigm perspective, right?
Yes and no, because I genuinely believe that there are entities at every order of things.
Right.
I believe there are things that I cannot see. I believe that there are forces to this world that bind it and break it. Positive growth, expansion, contraction, all the things. But at the end of the day, for me, it's just a tool. And it's the most extreme tool I'm ever willing to use.
The question is the tool itself, like, all right, I'm going to use the example of a magician, right? A magician playing sleight of hand with someone.
Okay.
Now, everyone knows how sleight of hand works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're still amazed at a really skilled magician who does it, right?
And the difference between that and genuine magic is understanding, or?
Nope. The difference between that and magic is you can't see the sleight of hand in magic. Because most people think that magic comes from, some type of power or source. It really doesn't. There are entities that they are multidimensional, right?
Yes.
So they can do things in ways that you can't see. They move in ways you can't see.
Yes.
Is basically what I'm saying.
Yes.
They have a geometry that is different than ours.
Yes, I'm aware of these things.
Okay. So when you're using any type of deck of cards, you can do this with normal playing cards. Actually, a lot of witches will say OLA cards
Yes,
are the standard.
They'll prefer them, actually.
Yes, they will. They will prefer them over the tarot cards or whatever other type of deck of cards you're using. And it's because the goal of using the cards is it's not the tool that matters.
It's what you're reaching.
It's the question you're posing to something listening. Normally, sometimes it doesn't work at all.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest. The majority of the time, it will not work.
It is the egregore or thought form you're attempting to communicate with. That is the question.
Right. And that is the entity that comes in to play that role.
And the reason
Now,
why these things concern me is because whenever I ask, I will always get a perfectly accurate response.
well, you got to remember. Okay, and once again, I'm going to go into a little bit of these entities. They're not telekinetic, right? But they do follow you around. They study people, and they're thousands of years old. So they have an understanding of people, kind of like how a skilled investigator can read a person's actions and their body language, kind of know what they want. Well, they watch somebody's life and they say, "Oh, okay, I know kind of know what answer they want." Because generally, we all want answers. That when we ask a question, we already know an answer, right?
Yes.
So these things can manipulate you, and they can give you an answer that you want, and they can do things that will make slight changes in your daily life.
Oh, yeah.
To ensure that answer makes sense to you.
They are capable, self-interested entities. That they have they have the things they want. You have the things you want, and by interacting with them, you change your world.
The issue is the ones that actually do this are the ones that have lots of time on their hands, right?
And they're a little more chaotic.
Yes, definitely. They're most likely fallen in nature.
Because otherwise, they would have no interest, yes?
Right, because they'd be doing something else. Because I believe that most of the spirits have particular jobs and orders from a higher command.
And you can interact with them so long as they are suiting their function to improve yourself and yada yada yada. So long as they're suiting their function, you're technically fine. But here's the thing. I'll tell you right now, I haven't touched those cards in a little while.
Okay.
I got that feeling in the pit of my stomach that tells me what I should do or ought not to do. And as far as I'm concerned, I will follow that first.
That's good. That's good. Listen to that. Because I didn't.
Because I learned the hard way, but not to the point of losing anything, that if I don't listen to that, things go wrong in a way I cannot understand or explain. At least not at this point. Because all I want is self-improvement and nothing more. I want to look after the people around me and nothing more. I'm not interested in creating a rapport with these entities for the purpose of having power from the nature of this rapport. In other words, I have no desire to be a summoner. I have no desire to be the traditional understanding of an occultist. I want to see things as they are, but I want to do it on my own. I want to pray to God with the substance of my matter and say, for everything good that you are, I will serve. And I want to emulate. I have my own prayers that I have written down that say that.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess this is kind of good news that I can tell you. I know for a fact that God, the big G, God, Yahweh, the Prime Creator, all the different names for it, he does answer prayers, and he's more interested in having a personal relationship with people than people realize. He's not too big for anyone personally, and he will answer all questions. It just takes time.
So I pray that the bits and pieces of me that have been chipped off, cut, scratched, lost, missing, you name it, or the bits and pieces that I've rejected for myself that I should come to terms with from a benefit perspective. Like, I want to be made whole, and I want to ask the original architect to do that, and I know he wants to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, the highest level of worship you can do is improve yourself and then help others do the same.
Yeah, I would agree that that's a very good thing to do, a high form of worship. Because that's basically what Jesus was asking us to do. It's self-improvement and try to be the best us we can be. But he also, he came and he sacrificed himself.
Because that's what I want. I mean, I grew up being an altar boy and then an acolyte, and then I went into the choir. I considered being a priest.
Right.
I want that depth. I've sat before the divine sacrament, like what's the word for it?
First?
Like, the larger host they put in that thing with the spikes on it, that they put out so people can meditate in front of it and pray?
Yes.
I
don't know what it's called.
I've been in front of that, and on 2 specific occasions I've had experiences that I cannot describe as anything but being greater than the word bliss. I've had moments where I saw things that nothing on this world scares me. My friends, they can't jump scare me, because what I saw in front of my eyes bent space and time. Things that are physical can't scare me, because that scared me in a way I cannot describe. I've had moments where the things that I said didn't come from me, benefited someone else directly in a way that I knew was good, and just blew everyone and everything away.
So you had a moment of tongues.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, that would be tongues. A lot of people can just confuse tongues as saying jibber jabber, but it's when something comes out of you that's not from you.
I've had moments where I've just said regular things to people that I know I've changed them for the rest of their life. Like, I'll feel compelled to speak to a specific random person that I'm just sitting next to by chance on the bus. Well, I don't believe in chance, but... And I'll sit and I'll look that person in the eye and I'll have a conversation with them. And when they walk off the bus and when I'm looking in their eye, I know I changed them for the rest of my life, and in a way that makes me feel good. Not in just a guttural satisfaction sense. I mean from a sense that I know I changed them for the better, and that satisfies me more than anything.
So you're not really an occultist, you're a mystic.
It's been called that by priests and such.
Yeah, there's a difference between an occultist, a full-blown occultist, and a mystic. And I myself would still consider myself a mystic.
Because I'm gonna devote something to you now, like, it's interesting for me because I don't know who to talk to about this stuff, because some of the priests that I've gone for my parish and otherwise that I've talked to, this isn't things that they're, like, they remember their lessons on how to handle it, but I can see in their eyes they can't relate, and I can't level with them, not completely. Like, I've stood there and I've seen, like, the cross the altar servers and acolytes carry in at the beginning and end of Mass?
Yep.
I've seen the tree of life rise, branches of it from that cross. Not the full tree of life, but branches of it. I have never seen anything
Are you referring to the Sephiroth, or...?
Yes.
Okay.
I have seen branches of that extend like a pillar, and in my mind's eye, I could know and see that it pierced my very understanding of the word height. I have never seen color like that in my life.
Right. Just for a moment for the listeners. The Sephiroth, guys, is it's referred to also as the Tree of Life. It's a geometrical shape that would represent a cube, but it's multi-dimensional, and it represents the dimensionality of our existence. So we recognize the three-dimensional cube as having length, height, and width, while the Sephiroth is displaying something that has, I think, 12 extra dimensions that are above ours, and which we would understand these as the nuclear dimensions and the time domain, other things like that. You can go into some science and look at that. A lot of stuff that has been done with CERN shows examples of this. It's a very interesting shape that you can look at and study. There's a lot of occult stuff behind it that is not related to it. A lot of occult groups will use that symbol to mean other things. Its purest, simplest form is just showing a dimensional structure of the universe. Alright. Okay, that covers that.
And another note, one specific time during the Holy Eucharist, I've seen and watched, I had this distinct feeling there was a heavy electricity almost in the air. I could feel everything at once. I could see the back of everyone's heads at once, although I was sitting closer to the front than anywhere else. In the very middle. I could feel that something fantastic was about to happen, to the point where it had me on edge in an anticipation that was nothing like nerve. It was a sober, deep, and intoxicating excitement at the same time. My entire focus simultaneously was still on the sacrifice of the Mass. It was in front of me, and I felt like something beautiful beyond anything I can describe. More beautiful than any branch of the Tree of Life was about to happen in front of me, and I could feel that the priest was focused on the consecration itself, because it was at that moment, then, greater than anyone else, he had never been focused on that more in his life. Not a single child was crying, nothing was happening except the sacrifice of the Mass. And in that moment, I could see and feel simultaneously, but not see per se, but I could see it. A hand grabbed the back of the priest's collar and tug, and it broke his focus away, and just like that, it felt like everything collapsed. Harder than anything can. And that something beautiful was just missed. And I spoke to the priest about this after, and he said he felt it. That something tugged on it, and he was pulling back on his collar to take it back. And it blew him out of the water that I told him this. And that's how my conversation with him on these things began. Sorry.
Right. The interesting part about that, which I don't know if you know about... I don't want to put it as electricity, but it's very similar to electricity.
Like etheric something?
Well, electrical currents, specifically electrical currents, they're required for a spirit to manifest. That type of energy, at least. That's why... That's why fire is used for occult practices. It's because fire is a form of plasma. It's energy, right?
Alright.
So a spirit will draw on that energy. That's why, like, when people say they experience ghosts, the room temperature drops, right? They'll feel, like, cold. It's because they're drawing from their energy in order to manifest. And what you might have been witnessing is either a very powerful... Well, normally a powerful spirit, you feel as heat. Like a burning sensation. But, it could have been a spirit trying to manifest. And that tugging...
My focus was on the Eucharist.
Was trying to stop it, what he was doing.
My focus was explicitly on the Eucharist. I had a distinct feeling that something was going to happen that was going to be relevant to the Eucharist. And that's the extent of what I know.
So you believe in the...
I believe in transubstantiation.
So you have a lot of the... of course. Yeah. you'd bear a lot of the belief in the Catholic rituals.
And I carry a lot of that, and I know that limits my perspective, but at the same time, I'm just telling you what I know.
Right. I completely get you. Alright. Because, like, I'm careful here because I don't want to offend you.
No, say anything. I can take
Okay.
anything you say. I can step back to where I came from, and if there's anything you want to tell me, I want to hear it.
Well, because the Eucharist, the thing that I have the issue with the Eucharist is it's acknowledging Christ's death eternally, right?
As opposed to
his death being done. Like he's in prison.
So is it like a sense of denial?
It's not denying Christ. It's okay. So way back when they started doing the Eucharist, this was during Constantine's time and a little bit after. But the Eucharist used to be a ritual of the eternal death, right? And it was the recognizing of the Father constantly dying, because you got to remember the Apollyon pagans or the Apollo pagans were the ones that kind of came in and started forming the rituals of the Catholic Church early in the beginning.
Yes.
Because Constantine's mother was the high priestess of that order. So a lot of that stuff kind of got brought in. Well, they wanted to keep their rituals, and the Eucharist was the ritual that they used to do for the Trinity that they had, because they did have a Father, Son, and Mother Trinity also. But it wasn't the same Trinity. It was rather perverted. So it was the Oedipus complex kind of.
Oh shit.
The Son kills the Father,
and the son takes with the mother.
Right. Exactly. And so they had to mirror that kind of, switch it around for the Eucharist. The Son's dying and the Father and the Mother,
Interesting.
But I have qualms about that, and because the ritual's so similar. If you look at the rituals, they're not exactly identical, but they're so close that it's like, you gotta take pause with it.
Fair enough. And part of the reason why I'm nowhere near the Catholic I used to be, when I say I'm a Catholic, it's only from the perspective of me studying and preferring the mechanics and understandings of Hermeticism as wisdom. And it's where I came from, and I know a significant amount of me is still influenced and affected by it.
Right.
It's the best I have for introduction, but I have no desire to hold and cling to. I know there's something wrong. I couldn't tell you everything about it. And I know that perversions have slipped their way into the church. I'd be happy if those were purged. I would be happy for a time of better understanding to come in, but even just saying that is loaded with so many other aspects and assumptions. All I want to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, because, you look at any denomination that has its issues. Catholicism's no different than any other denomination as far as that. It has its issues, but it's still virtuous in its nature.
You can learn from it. It can improve you. It can improve others.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what's important to me. Like my family, it still is Catholic. It's been Catholic for a significant amount of its history because it comes from an old Portuguese background.
Sure.
Here's what I want. I want to learn the divine mysteries, not in the Catholic sense, but in the sense, I believe that there are ancient laws and that there are moral laws. There's the laws we created for very damn good reasons, but there's also ancient laws and mysteries that predate any human understanding that are beautiful, immutable, and those who hold them ought to be respected, those who guard them ought to be defended. I believe in these. I believe the Catholic Church showed me a facsimile of that which is great, with unrefined amounts of filth attached to it, but the reality is that it is a mainstream religion, so it cannot show me everything, but it still has beauty unto itself. I believe that, no disrespect to Christianity, that it is broken and whole in ways unique to it. I still have respect for the priests that I see, although I care nothing for the Vatican being a flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I can agree with that, because I identify as a Christian, but that's it. I don't attach attach myself to a denomination because I just my perspective is the Bible is preserved because God preserved it, type of thing, and there's knowledge to be found in there. With careful study, you can find out pretty much anything from it. However, what we've seen today is people, the mainstream of it, they've taken their interpretations and they've set it higher than what the Bible actually says.
Yeah.
So, the perspective of people today is that this is what the Bible says, even though that's not what the Bible actually says. And instead of reading it for themselves or studying it themselves, they supersede that with their own words. Like, a lot of people don't think, like, the law existed before the Jews, right? Because they think, oh yeah, it's Leviticus and all that, that's where we got the laws from. But clearly Adam and Eve, and, how do they know to sacrifice? Way back in Genesis. I mean, if there was no laws, why are they sacrifices? Cain and Abel's a perfect example of that.
Because all things must come from somewhere.
Exactly.
I completely agree.
Exactly.
Like, everything has an origin. And the reason why I seek the Lord, the one who predates all human understanding, forged it, the source from which we all come, the source which we must acknowledge. If there is a spark of divine within us, then we are obligated to protect and cultivate it. I seek the Lord. I will fight for the Lord, and I will ask for nothing. And if the spoils are determined to be mine, I will not ask for them. I will find them given to me. They will be placed at my head, and I will take them onto my hand. The Lord is the one in all. All things, he permeates all. He is nothing and everything.
So what is your view on sin?
I always will see things as thought form, despite the modernized connotations of that word, and energy. I believe sin is an energy that we subject ourselves to. It is a flaw unto ourselves that we choose to accept by our action, that we ought to reject at all points. Like, you're just harming yourself and the people around you with it. It's a negative energy. It's freeing yourself from sin is to free yourself from self-harm.
Right.
Sin is one of the deaths. I believe there are many ways inside of which a person can die, more than just physically. And even then, there are many physical deaths. Sin is a slavery, but not the slavery. Like, if this world is an illusion, sin is one of its negative illusions. If we choose to make ourselves a child of sin, in some capacity we have certainly fallen. By removing ourselves from vice, from spite, from the genuine presence of hatred. In other words, from associating ourselves with things that are dark. And I do not believe that Satan is the ultimate evil. I think that there are things darker than it, because Lucifer, like the Lucifer, like I believe that there are many spirits called Satans, but Lucifer is a fallen angel. He was never the original evil, but in many cases, he is something undesirable to associate oneself with. I believe that there is something deeper, darker, a greater evil, not in the sense of it being great, anything more than it is the ultimate evil. And that is the ultimate enemy. Because I have heard from some that theoretically Lucifer may or may not have gone against his original programming at the hands of God, although he is certainly something not to pursue. I believe there is something deeper, greater in the sense of evil. Like, I believe in the polarity of all things, positive and negative, but without any moral weight to those words. That there is a great good, and that there is therefore a great evil. Like, God is both the creator and destroyer, the master of all things, but there is also the ultimate slave. And what makes him the slave that he is that he enslaves others. Because you cannot be more than what you are. You cannot demand or expect from others more than that which you are or equal to. I think that this great enslaved power may be itself the beast, or a factor of it. Lucifer may or may not be an aspect of it, I understand that early on in Revelations, I think between chapters 1 through 6 or something like that, or at least in some point of the Bible, it says that Lucifer is the great beast whose mark and number is 666 or something like that. I'm sketchy.
That's not attributed to the beast, but the beast does have a number. That's not necessarily attributed to Lucifer. A lot of people can argue about what the beast is. The number of the beast is 666, but it's probably more or less referring to the Antichrist with that one. As far as Lucifer goes with that, there's Satan mentioned in Revelation. Lucifer's not mentioned in Revelation. Satan is. And he's mentioned as being the great red dragon. Right? Which makes sense because he's a seraphim.
He's seraphim.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was one of the seraphim. He was Lucifer was the worship leader in heaven.
For both... Sorry.
What? No, go ahead.
For both my benefit and the audience, can you please elaborate on what the seraphim are?
Seraphim is a word that is used in the Bible to describe a organization of angels. They could be a creature unto themselves, but the word translates from Hebrew out to fiery serpent. And the seraphim are the throne guardians of God. A lot of people think that they could be archangels. That could be a classification of archangel. But it is very clear that they are multi-winged beings. And they say they have eyes all over them, the way they describe in the Bible. That could just mean that they can see in all directions. It might not necessarily mean that there's literal eyes on all over them.
But
Because a lot of people will refer to like third eye, for instance, of people, which is the pineal gland. So
yeah, but
what that means could mean a bunch of other things.
But
The thing about them is they are a class of angel.
would it be at least safe to suggest that they may or may not be able to see things for as they are?
They very much could. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, that's one thing that's promised to us. God will allow us when we have our new bodies, when we're given our new bodies, that we'll be able to see Him for as He is.
Well, I'll tell you that once upon a time, I found myself making a particular prayer for God where I gave away particular fears of mine onto God proper.
Yeah.
Not expecting or wanting anything in return, but after I did, I in that moment felt those things removed from me in a way that has permanently changed me.
That's really cool.
And then I felt that I gained something or some things beyond my understanding, and I still think they're unfolding today. And sometimes, if my heart is humble, my mind is relaxed, and I'm mentally in the right place, I will feel myself learning things that I did not know that I did not know from something in a place that is nothing within my comprehension. I will feel that I'm learning something from somewhere, and at any time I can refuse it. And once I did, and I found myself terribly begging for it to come back in my prayers. And when I genuinely committed myself to wanting it back, not immediately, but in time, I felt that after I learned humility proper, humility before the divine, that it gradually began to slowly trickle back. I don't know if it's completely back or not, and I don't know what or how it is or where it manifests, but I've always had, especially now, the concrete feeling that it is a good thing that I ought to bow my head before and say thank you for every single time, because I found myself understanding things that no words can describe, that I couldn't have learned from anything else. And sometimes...
That is so awesome.
Sometimes when I speak to others, that feeling returns, and I feel like I am speaking from it, but it is not me. I feel like sometimes I can speak to others, and I can tell them exactly what they need to hear. I can tell them exactly the words they need to hear. I can tell them exactly the things that will bring them comfort. I will bring them exactly the things that are The things to fill the pieces of themselves that have been knocked, cut, chipped away, unsatisfied, broken. The things that make people wander in the negative sense.
Yeah.
That is what I live for. And every time I do it, I feel a satisfaction that no anything else can give. Like, there are people that I care for,
Sure.
but it's nothing like that. There are things that I like to do, but it's nothing like that. Like, I practice calligraphy and a few other things in the arts. Sometimes, if I relax myself in just the right way, I can feel almost an echo of that. And I find myself doing things that I remember doing, but unless I'm in that state of mind, I cannot replicate it. And it's the best I've ever done. And every time I do it, it's even better than my best. Like, it's indescribable. And I, especially ever since then, I've had the feeling that when I look at people, I instantly know everything I need to know about them to know who they are.
Yeah.
For any purpose.
Yeah, that's actually something I have too.
Damn. Because I've never heard of anything remotely like it.
Yeah, because you develop. It's very interesting because you're describing something that I would describe on myself too, and I receive these things through prayer. And it's very interesting that you pointed out the way that you pray. That to me, that's courageous prayer right there. A lot of people they pray for things, right? They think they're going to get it because they look at God as their sugar daddy.
Oh,
You're
no.
literally praying for understanding and knowledge.
That's what I want. That's exactly what I want. I will be satisfied if I can live 1,000 lifetimes asking for that, but nothing physical. No boons. Like, I ask for nothing. I only want to learn.
And it enriches you to learn too.
But I want...
I mean, it's hard to explain to people that have not experienced this.
But it's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful, and this is a real thing that he's describing right here, guys. There is power. When people say there's power in prayer, it's not necessarily the way that you're thinking. I mean, yes, God does heal people and He performs miracles and stuff. That is 100% true. He does. But the personal life, reconstruction of your personal life and your thought forms and the way you think is a thing that happens with prayer. Yeah.
The only thing I ask for is that if there ever is a fight where people would be called to fight for this benefit and purpose, that I might be one of them, so I can do my best. Not for any spoils of it, but just simply so I can be there. If anything great comes out of it for me, I'm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what
Exactly.
I look for.
Well, your reward, you seek the reward given to you that is allotted to you by God.
I don't even ask
Instead of
for
a reward that you're seeking for yourself.
For me, the fight is the reward.
Right.
The service is the reward. The only
Exactly.
reason why I didn't become a priest or a soldier, which I also felt, like, everything I felt myself drawn towards always had, I found, when I got older, had a connotation of service to it. And even then, it never felt like enough service. Not from the sense that I was better than any of these things. If anything, I have nothing but respect for these things. Like, my dad himself was a soldier. My family has a history of military service. But I would look at it and I'd be about to get into thinking about committing to it, and I just came to the conclusion that it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But then I reached this, and I could do it forever. And I mean, these words pain me to say because they make me sound more important than I want to sound, but I've reached an understanding of what forever is, a fragment of it.
Sure.
And I could do these things for that duration, and all of the things I don't understand attached to it. I feel like
Just to point out something, people that have a hard time understanding the concept of forever, 1 billion years from now, if you live forever, you're going to be saying it's just begun.
It's like a blink.
And you'd be absolutely right.
It's a blink. You blink and it passes. Like, for me, like, people will say, I'll speak to people that have lived a significant duration of time, And I can see in their eyes that they think that I'm older than them. But I'm only 22.
You're only 22?
I am 22 years old.
You are well on your way, man.
My birthday will be in August 27, and I will be 23.
Good on you. Good on you.
But it doesn't feel like enough. I feel so young. I feel like I crawled out of a fucking cradle.
Yeah, I get that too. I have that same feeling.
Like every so
people.
Oh
no. Keep going.
Oh no, like I'll go out of my way to read things.
Yeah.
And every so often that'll blow me out of the water. Like I look at the direction towards which I'm trying my best to grow toward, and I'll find myself just saying like, these things are beyond me. I'm so young. I know so little. And it's not me trying to make myself sound or be or assume to be more humble. Like I will genuinely see thousands of lifetimes before me worth of knowledge, and that's not even 1% of it. I look at that when I do my personal studies and my prayers.
Right.
And I'll just look at that and I'll genuinely be blown away. And I know that even that is merely a fragment of a fragment of a fragment of all that is and will be. And even then I won't be able to grasp that. Not in the state I am now by any stretch of the imagination. It's just mind-blowing how much depth there is. And that makes me say I'm young. And I don't even understand that, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's right on. Right on target with me.
I want to learn. But I know that if I chase it, my hand will close itself around air, so I'll just sit and be patient and say thank you. And continue my prayers and my meditations.
Dude, you're going to become a hardcore Christian because you sound exactly like myself, how I started out.
If you can tell me that Christianity can bring me to these things, then take me the fuck back to church right now. That's what I want.
It can. It really can. But I don't necessarily suggest going back to church immediately.
I don't feel...
I know a lot of people will be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. You are searching right now, right?
I feel like something's missing before I go back. I want to go back with my parents. I want to go back. I want to take my sister with me because she's feeling some amount of this too. I can see it in her eyes. When I give her advice, I know it's what she needs to hear. I would have loved to have heard it from myself a few years ago. But I don't feel like I'm in my... I don't feel like I belong there when I go back to church today.
Okay. Well, what is your perspective on Jesus?
I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. I know there's something there. At a basic level, this is heresy. I believe he's an ancient magician who came to improve the world and people. I believe that he necessarily did not come for us to worship him, but for us to worship God, to teach us a divine path or a divine branch on the tree, to bring us to a place and point so that we could eventually have a chance at reaching God with maturity of spirit. Like, I feel like I'm watering down so much. But he brought something. I don't know what it is, and I don't know who he is.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you. That's the thing that's missing. That's what you're seeking that's missing. Is who is Jesus. And I would really encourage you to do a study on who is Jesus, because you got the cosmology, you got the understanding of all the other things. You've looked at everything. I mean, you really have. And what is missing is Jesus. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not even upset to say that, you know?
I feel that.
And I know it's the cliche to say, like, oh, Jesus is missing in your life. But you've seen the other sides of things, right?
But that
you pretty much know the coin.
Yes, and that cliched reaction, that's not what I'm feeling right now. At the pit of my gut, I feel like you're right.
Well, I'm looking for it right now. I have it written down. I got it in my notes. I want to read something to you.
I'm listening.
Right? And I gotta go through my notes to find it. It's in Genesis.
Because once upon a time,
Yeah.
like
Keep talking while I'm doing this.
all right. Well, most of my grandparents are dead, all but one of them, and that one
Yep.
I don't have communication with. So, in a non-legal sense, we kind of adopted a pair of old people. One of these, the grandfather, Mr. Alan Shaw, he was a priest once upon a time, a Catholic priest,
Right.
and he had a remarkable service as a priest. And his wife, who he married in old age, was possibly one of the most innocent women I've ever met, without being unwise. If anything, she's one of the wisest people I've ever known. And once upon a like they visit the family frequently, and I've had conversations like this with him, and he was actually able to keep up with so much of it. And once on the way out of seeing them out the door, because it's like a very professional. They come over for tea or a dinner, and it's very much like that, like the old way. And once they were on their way out the door, and I could feel that there was something in him that was either in pain or sore. And the guy's not, his youth passed ages ago. Well, not ages ago, but his youth is past. And I could feel that something was sore or broken or hurt with him or about to break. And so when I was about to give him the usual hug out the door, in the middle of giving him the hug, I felt like in my mind that I slowed things down long enough for me to do this, because it wasn't that long of a hug. And I imagined a golden light descending from the relative above.
Yep.
And I imagined that whatever it was in him that was out of sync was being turned back into sync. In the instant it
Crown.
was, I don't know. And the instant I felt it return into sync, he jumped as if he was startled. And he gave me a look I'll never forget. And I felt like the task was finished.
That's awesome. Alright, I found what I want to read you in my notes. Sometimes I find it hard to remember these things. Alright, so in Genesis, now hold on, I'm first going to prefix this. So, you would agree that the Hebrews, their understanding of what their Messiah was supposed to be was a warrior, right?
Not only a warrior, but a jihadist in the sense of there being religious connotation associated with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we have that perspective. So you would agree that it was the Hebrews who wrote Genesis, right?
I believe so. Like, my understanding of the Bible is significantly more limited than yours.
Okay. I'm just getting you to understand the perspective of this, because what I'm about to read to you is it's God's fingerprint on the Bible.
Wow.
Genesis 5, right? It's a genealogy. It lists Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah, right? In that order.
Okay.
If you translate out those names, Adam means man is, Seth means appointed, Enosh means mortal, Kenan means sorrow, Mahalalel means the blessed God, Jared means shall come down, Enoch means teaching, Methuselah his death shall bring, Lamech the despairing, and Noah means comfort or rest. So if you translate that out and read it, it's man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching his death shall bring the despairing comfort or rest.
And the Word shall be made flesh.
Yep.
Wow.
That's Jesus.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
That's Jesus, and that's God putting his fingerprint on Genesis, which is one of the more early books that we have.
There is no question for me as to if Jesus lived, but what he lived as, what he came to be, and the extent to which this church we see today is his will, those are significant components of my question.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I have questions about the church today myself, and to all you Christians listening, I'm not saying that your churches are bad. I'm just saying that a lot of your churches are misguided.
At the very least, I feel something's missing.
Oh, something is definitely missing. There's this fake love in the church, right? Where
Yes.
it's love enough to not tell you anything that's wrong.
It's too Sunday school-like. There's not enough substance.
Yeah, there's no substance to it.
The tradition...
And people don't care anymore.
the ancient tradition of the Eucharist once could have been in a positive context.
Sure.
Like the sharing perspective of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. For me, everything, it comes down to feels, and I really can't describe. It's difficult too. Trying to figure out how to articulate those is part of the reason why I read so much. And everyone who speaks to me, they tell me, wow, you're so articulate, you're almost like a robot, or you're someone who speaks far older than you should, or things like that. Like, it's... there's so much words can't say.
Yeah. Well, you have a thirst. You know, it mentions in the Bible, if you seek, you will find, and you'll be thirsty. And you're thirsty.
I feel like that thirst will never be quenched until well after this body dies.
It's not. I can tell you right now, it's not. It's never quenched. I mean, I've studied my Bible cover to cover so many times. I've read almost every piece of ancient text you can think of. I've gone through if you go to sacredtext.org, I've read every one of them. All of them.
Wow.
Now, that's not even a joke. I don't remember half of it because it's just been so much, but I have thoughts of it, you know?
But some of it seeps through.
Of course, yeah, and you can see the connections between everything. I mean, everything is connected in some ways. I mean, you can look down the list and you can see where things came from, the origins of things.
Oh, tell
just
me
look
about
throughout
it.
history.
I've had moments of clarity that I cannot completely remember or describe, but I remember
Sure.
the feeling. I kept the feeling. I feel like that's something profound. The ability to keep
Yeah.
anything, even if it is just a feeling from those moments. I feel like when I try to remember my dreams and record them, when I try to sit down and clear my mind for clarity of it, when I try to ponder things, that when I have that from time, that I'm developed. It's like an individual is a container and you're trying to increase its size so that when those perfect moments come, you can take as much as you can carry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good perspective to have.
I've had moments where me being pissed off made things that aren't so wholesome screw off.
Right.
But it wasn't anger. It's like the
It's
room.
like righteous anger, right?
The room was ablaze with gold light,
Yeah.
but there was no malice in it.
Right.
I don't know. I'm talking about things that I normally wouldn't discuss with people, but
No, I understand because I would just warn you with colors, especially. I know that. I'm not gonna say demons, but colors are very particular to spirits. Colors are their flags, basically. They will hail underneath certain colors, right? So golden, I know. Golden sometimes is the color for higher spirits, right? And I think that's because they're trying to mirror God, you know?
oh, I'm aware of their ability to masquerade.
Yeah, they're trying to masquerade. So I'm not going to say that when you see these golden lights, it could be demonic. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that.
Oh no, like that's not what I'm saying.
I'm just saying to anyone that's out there listening, just because you see a golden light, don't necessarily assume that's good.
Oh, yes, that a million times over. Damn, yes.
Because I know there's going to be some people, because when they see that it's an occult, you know, discussion about somewhat the occult, they might hear that. Don't trust a golden light. Don't trust an angel. Don't trust an angel that comes to you and clothed in light. And if you're not terrified of it, if it's an angel that comes to you, chances are that's not an angel. And if you are terrified, it does not necessarily mean it's an angel. Best way to test an angel is if you bow to it or try to worship it, it will refuse you. If it does not refuse you doing that, that is not an angel.
Also, on top of that, if something is shiny or glows, that's worth questioning it.
Yes.
Like, if something is doing things that it normally shouldn't, it probably shouldn't be doing these things. The things that are beautiful and divine, there's a reason why that which is sacred is hidden. Not from this perspective that people are unworthy from an elitist perspective, but that you may or may not be ready. Because if you see some things in its full size, it will drive you insane in a way that no words can describe, in a way that makes schizophrenia look tame. And it's not tame. It's one of the worst prisons a person can be in, because it's a prison of the mind. Multiply that by being a prison of the spirit.
That's right.
There's things that, especially if you're doing good things, that want to take a big, nasty bite out of you.
Yeah, and another thing too about these spirits is they will be your friend for a lifetime if they know they can trap you for an eternity. So I don't think just because they're nice, they're necessarily nice.
It costs most things nothing to be nice.
Exactly. Exactly. It's an attitude, not an actual thing.
And it's a perspective, and if anything can form you into its perspective, it is likely that it does not have benevolent intent.
100% true. I experienced that myself.
Because you must be willing to remember that there is a piece of the Lord within you that you are obligated to defend. And anything which demands it is probably not from the Lord, because the Lord has the source. The Lord does not need it. He gave it to you out of love. He does not want it back. He wants you to curate it and return to him, not with a spark, not with a flame, but with an inferno.
Yeah, that is right. That is right. And for a lot of people that might not understand what we're talking about, it's not just knowledge that we're talking about. We're talking about a personal, I wouldn't say divinity, because that's too far, but
it's something great.
Your nature, you can use the Ten Commandments about that. Your nature generally is it's devoid, because you will at least think about doing these things. The curation of knowledge and understanding, and logos, is really important to not only the Christian but everyone. The more you do that, the less you're going to have those temptations in your life, and you're going to progress more towards a good and righteous way of being. Because righteousness really it's what's best for everyone, not just yourself.
Let me put a pin in that right there. It's more than that. It's not just stepping away from sin. Imagine these ideas as almost being spheres. Like, they're a real place that occupy a real space in real time. And sin is that. You can choose to disassociate yourself from sin at a level, in a dynamic, and in a nature to the point where it ceases to have hold over you. I understand from my teaching as a Catholic that death is a component of it, but I do believe that with the help of the Lord that a person can reach that point in their life, such as the saint.
Crap.
Like, you can associate yourself with anything you want, which is part of the reason why I think you had such a nasty, bloody experience.
Yeah.
Like, we have our free will. We
have our free will.
We were given that much. We can become anything we want. As beautiful or hideous, as kind or as evil.
Yes. Yeah. That is all within our capacity. I would argue, though, one thing, though. As far as sin goes, it has tainted us to our very core, right? And we are slaves to sin to some extent. That's the whole reason why Christ came. It was to pay for our sins. He was the last sacrifice. So his blood payment for our sins is what gives us entry into God's audience. I don't think we could ever free ourselves from it. I think that's why Christ needed to come. It's too big of a sacrifice if we could have done it ourselves. I think that the price that Christ paid, death on the cross, to be, a divine Son of God, and to have lived a sinless life, and to have shown us the way of how to do it, and to still be killed on the cross. I don't think that would have been righteous if that wasn't the price that had to be paid. there was no way we could have done it ourselves. We had already failed on our mission. I think Adam failed that mission. Because in the garden, Adam was supposed to keep Satan out of the garden, and he allowed him in. And because of that, sin came into the world. He didn't do his job. And so it required God to become man in order to rid the world of sin. Because when Christ died on the cross, it wasn't just about humanity. It was about all of existence being purged from sin, having that payment done.
And furthermore, I understand this to be at a cosmological level, where an act of blood sin, but something so much deeper and worse than that, can only be forgiven by a sacrifice of virtue, blood, but at a level, again, so much deeper than that. Like, we're talking about things that... So there's various dimensions in terms of the word death of things. And this is what we're talking about. It's like, if I could put that on a scale from 1 to 100, it's up there. But words, they're somewhere in the tens. They're just so removed from the ultimate truth that these things are. And I'm tempted to say that the sacrifice of the Lord himself is almost itself a mystery. And we're discussing one of these great mysteries in no words of this lesser depth.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We have no clue what that actually really means.
I mean, you and I, we can spitball about it for the benefit of maybe having, at the risk of sounding more than I am, of having a better understanding of things. You and I can discuss this all day long.
Sure.
But God, wow, we're so far from knowing what it was, truly, in all of its depth. Like, it's like, every so often in very artistic things, you'll see the world illustrated as a clock of fantastic depth, complexity, where its tick is the heartbeat of the world itself. You'll see this everything from the most silliness of Japanese animes to the most serious of romantic literature. You'll see this in all the media.
Yeah.
That mystery, compared to that, the mystery makes that look like a literal mustard seed. So small and apparently insignificant. And even then, the human grasp of the idea of what that great mechanism is, that's still quite the undertaking, especially for a human life.
Yeah. Are you aware about the truth about mustard seed? Like that's used as an allegory for that?
I think I know a component of it, but I don't want to say I know the whole thing.
Okay, because a mustard seed's one of the smallest seeds you can have, right? It's very, very tiny.
I understand it being similar to, you know how they say sword in the stone? Remove the S's from that and it becomes word in the tone. Focused, intent.
It grows into a huge tree.
Yes.
It's this little thing that grows into this huge tree. I mean, mustard trees are huge. Huge. It's just this tiny little seed. Comparative.
By the way, the floor is
No,
yours.
that's great. It's great. So, all right. So you sound like the type of guy that would really be interested in prehistory, right?
Absolutely. I'm currently studying at Laurentian University. I am currently pursuing an undergraduate's degree in history via the arts.
Okay, cool. So, what is your view on pre-flood history? What is your view? Because you would have a lot of that knowledge too.
All things that have happened before. There is nothing new under the sun. Once upon.
So do you think that? Oh, go ahead. No, I'll stop.
This includes technology and all that has been done before, all that has been seen before, said before. Maybe
Awesome. I was just going to bring that up. Awesome. That's what I was going to go for.
We have remnants of artifacts and once intact buildings and foundations that we can't explain how it's even still intact. Earthquakes can not even dent these things. It's so complex that we only started to have a marginal understanding of the types of concrete used relatively recently. Heck, even Roman concrete, it's nothing compared to that. It was only recently in the last decade that we even understood what its composition was. Sure, today we can make better things, but the fact that we couldn't even analyze at its basic components what it was, that's gotta say something. And 2,000 years ago, the Roman period, that's not even a split second in the memory of history. There is a prehistory that I want to say it's hidden, possibly for malicious intent, but at the very least, the mainstream understanding of it is a 1% completion at best. There once were people who... in science, they say that there are various levels, which is 4 levels, a civilization could be at, in terms of how they are capable of influencing their environment and harvesting resources. These civilizations were far further along on this scale than we are now, with terraforming, the ability to completely reconstruct an entire planet and a particular desired environmental image, with full attention to every detail necessary, and I mean that. Things at that level of civilization that were there before us. And every so often, you can go back to these sites that they left behind, and you'll see 2 types of construction on these lost foundations, both of them being very good. But you can tell the difference between the original civilization that was there and the Mayans that we were aware of in terms of the quality of this construction. You don't need to be a history major. You can just look at it. It's the difference between cobblestone and a skyscraper. It's the difference between a wooden prehistoric hut, from my understanding of prehistory in the mainstream, to some of the most fantastically large domes, which the Sistine Chapel once was an example of, that would have blown away the contemporary architect. There's so much we don't know. And there are some who would say even that the Nephilim, and I'll leave the floor to you to describe who and what the Nephilim are for audience benefit.
Sure, I can do that right now. The Nephilim were the result of the fallen, or a group of angels coming down from heaven and mating with women. My proof is Genesis 6. It's right at the beginning of Genesis 6. We'll mention that. Contemporary religious scholars will say that was the sons of Seth. But if a Christian marries somebody that's not a Christian, they don't have weird offspring. And that doesn't make any sense. But these offspring were weird, and they were huge.
There are some...
That's what Nephilim.
There are some who would say that these creatures are the result of deliberate genetic manipulation at a level of science beyond our conception at this time. We're talking about the Bible discussing things that they sound mystical and fantasy level, only because it deals with a level of science and a recognition of the natural world and environment within a scientific perspective that is so ridiculously beyond us today. We think we're advanced now. We may as well be bashing stones together because that's how simple our understanding of things are. This is part of the reason why the occult can be so fascinating to many people. This is why some of the most advanced people in our history that have changed us, almost all of them, if you look into their lives, they dabbled in the occult in some capacity, and in some cases completely destroying them.
That's right.
There is an ultimate understanding, from a classical sense, of thoughts that they come from somewhere. They have to.
Yes.
Everything that has been done once has been done before. There is a place to which we are genuinely reaching when we express the arts, with science being one of them, with poetry being one of them, the visual arts themselves being one of them, the musics being one of them. An ultimate truth that we can take and reduce so terribly down, but still appreciate in some way. Different fragments of this truth will appeal to us differently based on our current understanding of our nature. Some people will like rap. Some people will be really interested in modern art. Some people care nothing but it. Some people care for nothing except classical. That's an expression of this thing.
That's absolutely right. I'd like to add that, if you read any number of occultists, you will come to the realization that they all talk about this ancient future. And what they're referring to is bringing back the old technology of the ancient times of Bloomeria, Mu, Atlantis. These are all places they talk about, and these were actual places. Most likely, if you look at the pyramids of Giza, the very specific ones are the pyramids of Giza. You can tell that was a technology. That was not a burial tomb. They never found a body inside of the pyramids of Giza. This wasn't a burial tomb. This was a energy generating source. The reason why they used limestone the way they did is because it's conductive, and it was a power generation mechanism. Nikolai Tesla, who may have been an occultist, I'm not sure, was able to recreate something like that using water, and all you would have to do is stick a rod in the ground near this device, and you would have electricity. These technologies exist in ways that we don't recognize as technology because we're used to our silicon computers. The thing is, with time, that stuff will all wear away to nothing. The fact that we have plastic now, that doesn't wear as quickly as other materials. But you can be sure that as people found these materials, they'd mostly be wasted away into nothing because it wouldn't exist. So they could have used materials like that, but chances are they used crystals and things that of another nature. Most people don't know this, but crystals are used in your radios. You wouldn't have a radio receiver without crystals. So the form of technology was different, but it was definitely there. And a lot of the occult books talk about it. Alchemy, for instance, is a lot of that. They just hid it within certain secrets because it was power and they wanted it to be hidden.
And it's more than that. These things weren't hidden necessarily out of malicious intent. It's kind of if you can teach someone 7 words, and those will bend anyone's will, you're gonna want to be sure you control who knows those words, not for the benefit of anything malicious. These are things at a level that can literally split the earth, rip it apart, and make nasty stuff come out. As a matter of fact, I believe that that's what we're going to be looking at sometime in the future. When, I do not know, but there is something that there are lines in the Bible that are deliberately preparing us for something. It ain't gonna be pretty.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the green glass in India?
The green glass, I've heard of it. Is it mildly radioactive? Because
Yes, it's completely radioactive.
Because I've heard that there are those who believe that there has been a deliberate effort of radiation against the Earth for the purpose of making it more feasible for nasty stuff to make themselves substance.
That could be. My theory is there was actually evidence of a nuclear war that happened.
I heard that.
In India. And the thing about it is, people will say, green glass, why does green glass matter? Green glass forms. Yes, it does. It doesn't form with giant sheets. When you see it form in giant sheets, that's what we experienced over in, I think it's New Mexico? It's either New Mexico or Arizona when we did the nuclear testing. Nuclear blast would literally create sheets of green glass out in the desert.
These cannot form unless a thermonuclear exchange occurred with weaponized intent.
That's right.
In simple, plain English, they're only there because someone nuked someone with something much bigger than this traditional nuke that we saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those were traditional nukes. What we have now are thermonuclear devices, hundreds if not thousands of magnitudes more powerful. These are things that glass civilizations. Ironically perfect that we literally found glass. And there's evidence that there once upon a time was a wonderfully advanced civilization with a beautiful golden age where we see India today, and the modern Indians are not them.
Yes. Yep. And on top of that, speaking of India, it used to be forested before whatever happened. That entire area was forested, and now it's a desert. I contest that desert did not form naturally.
They ate a few nukes.
Yeah. I think they leveled it with a few nukes.
And every so often, we pull artifacts out of the ground of a mechanical complexity with them being devices We don't know what they are. We just know there's something, and sometimes the best thing we can do is stick it in an MRI and hope it doesn't break anything, because MRIs use powerful magnets in computers.
Yes, they do. The anti-Cathecata theorem device, the one that was off the Greek coast they found. I can't pronounce it. It's some really complex name. It was a giant, several-cogged computer. And it was a calculator they had made with several cogs, and it could calculate celestial bodies and such. And to them, the ancient people, celestial bodies were really important. And it had to do with energy. They were obsessed with energy. Same thing with ley lines.
And
They're obsessed with ley. We still are. A lot of the places that you wouldn't think, but would be built in certain spots. We build our cities on ley lines for a reason.
And we're also discussing electromagnetic energy, in the sense that they weren't interested in planets just because they were there. They were interested because these things threw off a literal energetic shadow. We are biomechanical computers in the most brutalized sense of simplicity ourselves, but there are electromagnetic impulses that occur within the brain that what we see changes them. Looking at a television or computer screen at particular light frequencies has a definite impact on this. This is not some kind of occult BS. This is a patented U.S. technology, protected by the U.S. military. It was only disclosed recently. We have electromagnetic discharges and such in our heads that are extremely susceptible to our EM environment. It is theoretically possible that Wi-Fi, those are radio transmitters. They may or may not have a definite impact on our brain functions and chemistry.
Yep.
That's the context.
Just to back up what Isaac is saying is Russia recently. This is legit, people. You can look this up. The UK was just really angry with Russia putting some of their ships by them, because on board these ships they have a EMF wave that they can transmit that will literally knock out your vision.
Absolutely right. And what I was saying was hoping to build up toward that and to corroborate what you were saying, because the reason why America will not engage the Russians today is because of that. A couple of years ago, the Americans tried, specifically during the war concerning ISIS and the various puppets that control it in Syria. It's a different tangent. The U.S., with one of their cruisers and some aerial support, attempted to... No, I think a U.S. carrier with an air element attached attempted to engage Russian targets on the ground, where instead, a heavy aircraft, Russian, came and knocked out everything. Not only the computers, not only the sensors, but the backups to those computers and sensors and their backups. Completely toast. That boat had to be towed back to a U.S. base that was sufficiently capable with a genuine dry dock to pick that sucker out of the water, remove the broken bits, and stick the new ones back in. That's a full refit, people. Billions of dollars in damage.
And also, they did not have to fire one shot to do this. This was literally airwaves.
No weapons were visibly discharged to any camera evidence.
Yep. And the U.S., I'm going to go into a little deep state stuff, but there is a patent for a monitor refresh rate that can actually be used that will cause you to, it causes you to go into a deep coma. It doesn't actually put you to sleep. Your body functions stop, and you die. You stop breathing. This is from a refresh rate on your monitor. Just from visual, it puts you into a visual seizure. A lot of people might have a weakness to this, and so you'll have people that have epilepsy, for instance. Well, this is an epilepsy type thing that is everyone is affected by. You're not safe from it.
Epilepsy is merely a medical condition to refer to people who have a lower threshold for these things.
Right. That's right. They actually sell glasses now that will block these. And the very fact that they sell glasses that will block these types of frequencies tells you that they have certain people out there that know that this will be used at some point and to protect themselves.
And also, as a basic understanding as to how military technology works, there are two extreme ends of the spectrum. There are the ones. There are individual, extremely expensive and delicate, or sometimes extremely undelicate and unusually well made items and
Yeah.
prototypes that the expense to make those is ridiculous, but they work. But there's the other extreme end. They can take this technology and release it via some means to the civilian market so it can be mass produced and therefore produced cheaply. That's not only where we
That's
get
right.
a lot of the stuff we have today, but the fact that they're releasing this specific technology to the open market means that the government, US government, believes that this technology is relevant and valuable enough to let something that advanced be not only mass produced, but mass produced so that they can make a ridiculous amount of it for themselves, cheaply.
That's absolutely correct. So, whenever you see a new technology, that's like 30 years ago they developed that technology.
At the earliest.
At the earliest. It could have been much earlier. And believe it or not, if you understand occult writings, this technology is laid out in there. I mean, it's not anything new. None of this is new. I've read some occult writings that had designs for engines back in the Roman time.
The ancient
So-
Greeks themselves actually had electric motors that were water powered for opening
Yes.
and closing gates so they can get into their temple in the right time.
That's right. Baghdad had batteries that was used for electroplating, but nonetheless, I mean, way back in Baghdad, modern Baghdad. I mean, this was way back in ancient times. This is like 6,000+ years ago. They were electroplating gold on the things, using electricity, using, I think, wine they used, or some type of caustic acid they used to generate this electricity.
So if you're listening, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
If you're listening to this and you're asking, why the heck does this matter? Here is a real technological metaphor. The first computers we saw were massive. They did not have capacitors as we know them today, in the fullest extent. They did not have microprocessors, which were our major technological growth and advantage. These were not silicon computers. These were transistor computers. The difference between those and what we have today is ridiculous. The difference in technology would have been enough if introduced then to change the course of history and win wars permanently. That's the difference of what we had today to then. What we don't
right.
see in our mainstream today is so many magnitudes greater than that difference that I just mentioned, that it is difficult to conceive unless you've seen this technology at work yourself, and what you just imagined is nothing compared to what it really is.
Well, I'll use an example that they haven't really released yet. You will start hearing about this.
Oh god, are you gonna get us banned?
I'm not. I'm gonna talk about invisibility cloaks. They've been talked about throughout history. Invisibility cloaks.
And the mainstream has been doing some soft disclosure.
Well, soft disclosure, but I knew about invisibility cloaks in the year 2000. I had seen them, and online, stuff. There's forums that they were talking about. People would actually spot these things, and so invisibility cloaks have existed for a very, very long time. And now you're seeing a soft disclosure happen in the media. But people knew for a fact, way back in the 2000s, and it's probably back since the 80s, to be honest. People knew about invisibility cloak technology. Supposedly it was used in the Desert Storm. We have footage of it now being used in Iraq. They existed. They existed quite some time ago. And now they're just talking about it now.
Yep. Back to the Excalibur comment I made. Word in the stone. Word in the tone. Sword in the stone.
There you go.
Like, these are things that they've been known of for some. Like, everything that has been done once has been done before. There is nothing new under the sun. Different quotes, mind you, from various biblical and non-biblical sources relevant to Christianity. I don't remember which and where and how and why. Maybe you do. But that pretty much is everything in a nutshell. Like, you can live hanging on the edge of cutting-edge technology, but that's nothing more than someone else's idea. You're living for somebody else's idea.
That's right.
Like, you can live waiting for the latest implement of fashion, but once upon a time there were people much older than us, but younger than you, that looked much better than you, wearing a much better version of that thing. You can live trying to pursue your favorite substance to consume, but once upon a time there were people much bigger than you, much stronger than you, who enjoyed something far superior. Like, in a particular novel called Brave New World, there is something referred to as soma, the perfect drug. Yeah, well, that exists somewhere today. But you're not going to get it. You haven't been determined to be important enough to be that kind of stoned. You can live to be all these things that you never truly wanted yourself. They were ideas that were given to you for the purpose of deliberately trying to make you a little bit weaker. A little less down the scale of acuity, a little less present, a little less aware. You can be whatever the heck you... Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
You can be whatever the heck you want.
That's right.
You can decide how things affect you, including sin. The things
It's funny that you mentioned Brave New World, right?
Yeah.
I have a comment about that.
Go.
That's exactly the plan for today. A lot of people are expecting 1984. It's not going to be 1984.
1984.
They have technology. 1984 is a dinosaur. They don't need that. They have technology beyond 1980.
And
It's going to be Brave New World.
And 1984 cannot work because it's the difference between trauma-based conditioning and getting people to feel good about the bad they do. That's the difference. If you make someone feel bad about what they do, they will eventually fight it and wake up. You can only torture a person so long before it stops working and or they hit you back. But you can make anyone do anything if you can make them feel good about it. It is the scariest thing ever. You can make a person dig into their flesh until they pull out their bones if you make them feel good about it with the right drugs, with the right mental anything, the right influence, anything. And influence, it's more than just the things you eat. It's the things you see. It's the music you put in your ear. It's how you live. It's how you want to be. It's who you want to be. It's where you want to be. It's who you let teach you. It's who you let guide you. People keep on saying that you should go wherever you should with an open heart, but that's stupid. That which is sacred is hidden, not out of malice, but out of love.
Yep. And there's a thing that you can, if you sit back and you recognize this is going to change your life right here. There is Plan A and Plan B with manipulation. Plan A is always the first one that they do, and that is at a state of weakness. When someone is at a state of weakness, they're going to use Plan A, and that is to flatter you, to make you feel good, to make you happy, and if you go along with that, they're great and happy about that. And then there's Plan B, when somebody's at a state of power, right? And Plan B is not the flattery, it's not all that.
It's to break them.
Force. It's direct force.
It's to break them.
It's to break you. That's right. And those are the two plans. Now, if somebody in power can do Plan A, and they preferably do Plan A first.
It's cheaper.
They try to subvert you.
Yes.
If they can't, they'll destroy you.
You can either fold in and pay your taxes, or, well, let's not get banned.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you that one of the things that I've been considering on my little mental back burner is to think of offering to do with Ori a different additional series exclusively centered on self-help.
Yeah. That could be good.
And you know what? I enjoy having more conversations like this with you in the future.
Same here. Same here. This is right up my alley. This is the type of stuff I like talking about. I rant and rave about this stuff all the time on my my page. People think I'm a Republican because I stuff that I stand against, but like, once again, I'm not a Republican. It's funny. It's just the left has completely bought into Plan A because the conservatives are Plan B. You know.
Yeah.
So right now, Plan A is in full swing. I'm like, Plan B, Plan B.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, left.
That's exactly right.
It's just, which boot do you want to be kicked in the rear by?
Exactly. Well, choosing left or right is choosing which eye to cut out.
The only way to win is not to play.
Exactly. Okay.
It's a good movie.
Well, this has been very good. Do you have anything else to add?
Let's see. Eat your vegetables. No, I think that for this session we're starting to run out of material.
I think this has been really good. I hope all you listening have been enriched by this. I know I have. Yeah.
Same. This was fun.
It's been awesome.
It's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. I guess that's about it.
One of these days, I want to have a personal conversation with you about the mechanics of things.
Yes, we can.
I don't know.
I trust you enough so far that I know you wouldn't be doing that stuff, so yeah, we can have a conversation. Yeah.
Well, I also want you. It looks like you've gone toward things from the same angle at which I have, and I wouldn't.
The exact same thing.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
And
Knowledge over power.
I wouldn't mind having a tap on the shoulder saying, "Do not do these things and have fun."
Yeah. Basically, I will definitely. I'll do. Yeah, we'll do that sometime.
Because I'd love to have a mentor for these things personally, and I'm asking you for that.
I'll be more than willing to do that. If you can miss the pitfalls that I went into, that'd be wonderful.
And maybe, at best I can, maybe I can show you some of the things that I've come across.
Definitely. Everything's a mutual thing.
Yeah.
If anyone thinks that they're learning or teaching, specifically teaching, people that teach learn more from their students than they're actually teaching.
Yes.
Only a fool teaches, purely to teach. That's a fool. If you're not learning, you're not teaching.
To teach is to have your mouth open and your eyes open wider. You must hear and
right.
speak.
Right. All right. Well, this has been a special edition of Godcast.
I gotta. It's been a treat. I mean,
It has.
I wasn't expecting this.
I wasn't either. I mean, this is great. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to talk to somebody. I'm gonna have to talk about all this stuff. I'm like, no, don't do that.
I was thinking I'd have to almost dig in and be on the defensive a little bit.
No, not at all. I mean, I think you're right on the right path. I mean, your methods. You seem to be aware of what you're doing.
I try to be I don't want
And
to.
it comes from a virtuous spot.
Damn, I try.
Yeah. So I wouldn't worry so much. But I wouldn't suggest using Pharaoh. It can be manipulated. Physical tools can be manipulated very easily.
That's part of the reason why I was actually wary with it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to touch it until I read a significant enough amount of it to the point where I thought I may learn what I'm doing.
Yep. Well, prayer, like you said, and it sounds like you're getting your knowledge more from prayer than anything else.
Oh yeah, for me, once or twice, when I reached for the turret,
Yep.
it was just me trying to peek into the next few days ahead, or
Right.
if I'm being stupid in the moment or not. If the next thing I'm thinking of doing is stupid.
Yep.
That's it. I'm very, very, very aware of being very particular of what you let yourself be exposed to, because just as easily as you can wonderfully learn, the wrong thing at the wrong time can terribly break you, not from the sake of pursuing ignorance, but for the sake of shielding the self.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, this has been great. It was nice meeting you, Isaac.
Jace, it's been cheers.
Like, subscribe, and favorite, and remember to share this with everyone you know.
Share it with people you don't know. Go to work, put on the little, welcome board, a little link. A link that they can click, I don't know. And we have a Patreon too, so, if you have too much money, and let's be honest, you probably do, share a bit of your burden with us, we'll gladly take it off your hands. I mean, you rub our back now financially, and we'll rub your back later. Humble listener.